Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Awthentik and The Beard, the best television show not on TV. Thank God we did not have to watch our team take an L this week, man. This was definitely an ugly week for the NFL, man. A lot of real life. I think it's more important that Christian Kirk gets healthy. We had the 49ers dog walk the Philadelphia Eagles this week. The Cowboys with another impressive victory against the Seattle Seahawks, probably their most impressive victory of the season. And the Commanders take a super L to those Miami Dolphins. My girl's grandfather's definitely happy about that one. He's an OG, triple OG, big Miami Dolphins fan, so big shout out to him, man. So without further ado, we was going to maybe cancel today's show. I got to keep it funky with y'all, and I know that the Beard was going to be completely okay with that, the way that his team lost. But let's bring in the best co-host in the country, the strong side to the left side duo, Mr. Beard himself. What's going on, brother? How you living?
Another week in the books. I'm
here. I'm
here because I don't want to get fined. Listen, we are in complete shambles here in DC. It is depressing. I told Awthentik, I said, look, I just want to watch good a good game. I just want to have a little bit of competitiveness, decent game. I'm not expecting to win, I want to see some improvement, but my God. It was just about as bad as every other one this year, and everybody on Twitter let me know that I was completely wrong about my preseason
Cowboys fans were getting at you.
Predictions. So shout out to the Cowboys fans in the chat and on Twitter. But there were some good games this week. Some surprising victories. One that I did call. I will. Give myself a couple of flowers for that Green Bay pick over.
You are definitely more willing to give yourself flowers than the Dallas Cowboys. I see you brushed right by it. I want to talk about it a little bit. Shout out to Monique, who clipped up the clip of us when we were doing our record prediction show that kind of made it sound like you said that you were pretty much a biased fan, and that's why you had the Dallas Cowboys sitting at 8-9. And I thought the most hilarious part about it was you had the Washington Commanders sitting at 10-7 to end the season.
I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't
know what you were thinking either. My boy Mario, big homie in the hip hop scene out here in the DMV, he's a DJ. He chimed in on that one too, and he was like, even though Monique cut your face off, Awthentik, in the shot, I could still see that you were very disgusted by what the Beard was saying. And, that show was probably supposed to be a good 30 minutes less than it really was, because I kept asking you, how in the hell do you have a team that has back-to-back 12-win seasons sitting at 8 victories? And you were just like, I don't know, man. I'm just looking at the schedule, man. And, yeah, I think we got to find a way to get you to rebound and bounce back from that. Maybe we do a playoff prediction show. I know you're reaching with this Green Bay Packers game to come, right? But maybe we do a playoff prediction show. I might have Dallas
losing first round.
Go double down on them L's.
Yeah, I might have to. But no, listen, we're going to talk about each one of these games. We're going to talk about the performances. We're going to touch on Dak and Dallas. I thought that game was a fantastic football game. There was, like I said, there was some really good games this week. A ton of injuries though. That Jaguars lost. The Colts. Shout out my guy, the mustache magician Minshew.
Getting some W's, man.
The Colts and the Texans are one game behind the Jacksonville Jaguars now for first place in that division. Then you got the Bengals clawing. They're still clawing without Joe Burrow.
Buffalo Bills trying to find a way.
Yeah, so it's gonna be we're in that time now. Today I got that tweet from Schefter that said week 14 playoff scenarios. That's when I was just like, all right, this is gonna. Now we're getting into the juicy stuff. So I'm definitely excited for what's left.
One team
to come.
Eliminated already. The Carolina Panthers are mathematically now eliminated. I think where are they sitting at now? 1-10, 1-11,
hey,
1-12.
I got more. I got one more win than they do. I did win in our league. I did also take an L, unfortunately, to the unfortunate injury to Christian Kirk. That one. Hey, but shout out. Listen, the one thing I do love about football, right? When stuff like that happens, and you see a guy like Parker Washington just rise up and
I'm not as as big.
I know you're not, but listen, I love a good. Rudy's my favorite movie.
Tommy DeVito story. Yeah, you see me. I haven't done that with two hands like that. Pause like the whole entire time. Tommy
I
DeVito
don't know. Somebody go there. Maybe one, not two. Okay,
Yeah,
I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
No, I'm not as excited about Tommy DeVito. And today they announced that Tyrod Taylor is not going to be the starter for this upcoming game this week. So I'm kind of feeling a certain kind of way here. You know, I'm a DMV representative, although I'm a New York Giants fan. Didn't want to see my guy Tyrod get out of there, but I think this is all part of the plan.
They were like, yeah, listen, we're getting a little too close for comfort here. There's no way we can just put Tyrod back in and maybe win some more games,
Yeah, but most Giants fans think Tommy DeVito gives us the best chance to win right now. I mean, it's been all right. It's been all right. His game against your Commanders, I'd say, has been a highlight of his.
Most fans still think Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback, but that's for another day. Big shout out to each and every one of you in the chat watching across all the different platforms. That's Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and of course right here on YouTube. We appreciate all the love and all the support. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up while you all are here.
So you ready to get to this first game?
Let's do it, my friend.
All right, let's do it. We're going to start off with what should have been the most interesting matchup of the entire weekend. You know, I called this the NFC Championship Round 2 preview here, and definitely was not a good game here. A bit of a boat race from the 49ers. Let's talk about the 49ers who traveled to Philly to take on the Eagles. All right, so there's a saying that says revenge is a dish best served cold, and that's exactly what the 49ers did with the Philadelphia Eagles this weekend. 42-19. And I did have a feeling that one team could run away with this game, but I absolutely thought that it was going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. I think I called this a 2-score victory for the Philadelphia Eagles, and that was definitely not the case. The Eagles end up falling, which I don't know how much you can call this a falling, but they fall to 10-2. 49ers improved to 9-3. The over-under in this game was 46.5, and the 49ers damn near got there by themselves. 49ers started off with -6 yards in the first quarter on 6 plays. Their next 51 plays, they averaged 9.1 yards per play. The 49ers scored touchdowns on 6 straight possessions. The 49ers hadn't scored 6 straight touchdowns in a row since 1992. The last team to do it in the NFL was the 2019 Ravens, and if you're familiar with the MVP that season, you know exactly why that happened. Philadelphia had trailed at halftime in 4 straight games and came away with victories in all 4 of those games, but the 49ers said not this time. Philadelphia allowed 456 total yards of offense in the game after limiting the 49ers to -6 in the first quarter. I mean, this one really looked like the Eagles were going to be the front runner in this one when you saw A.J. Brown get that big play in the first quarter, end up getting held to a field goal on that drive. It's the Eagles' first loss at home this year as well, and the Eagles could have clinched a playoff spot with a win. Instead, they take the L to the 49ers, and they also had a little bit more history on the line here. They could have been the second team to win 11 of their first 12 games in back-to-back seasons. They're definitely falling victim to that, not getting there. 49ers outperformed the Eagles in first downs, third downs, total yards, passing yards, rushing yards by 100. I think that's the biggest number of the day. They outperformed them in the red zone, and they also had fewer penalties. 0 turnovers in this game. There was 0 of something else in another NFC East game. We're going to get to that one too, but this was definitely a week for the history books here. Debo talked a lot of shit leading up to this game, okay? He talked about James Bradberry once, doubled down on that, and I'd say he got the better of James Bradberry, or did he? We're gonna talk about that a little bit too. He did have 3 total touchdowns in this game, 4 receptions for 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bradberry, in the press conference, he complained about the pre-snap motion from the 49ers really giving them trouble and blowing a lot of coverages because of it and missing a lot of tackles because of it. And Bradberry took complete ownership. But in this game, when you dig into the numbers, James Bradberry did not allow a reception on the day. So everything that Debo did was not on James Bradberry. Jalen Hurts and Brock Purdy, that was a good matchup coming into this game. 2 candidates for the MVP race this year. Brock Purdy finished 19-27 for 314 yards, a ton of yak in this game from his wide receivers, mainly Debo. He had 4 touchdowns, a passer rating of 148.8. Purdy has 4 games now with at least 3 touchdown passes and a passer rating over 140 this season, tied for the most in NFL history with Tom Brady in 2007, my New York Giants fans, and Aaron Rodgers in 2011. My New York Giants fans. 2 seasons where the Giants came away with the Super Bowl. Purdy also has 5 career games with a passer rating over 140. the most by a player in his first 2 seasons in NFL history. I know you still, let me tell y'all what the Beard does. I can see it on his face right now. I know my brother, right? And he, somewhere lingering way back in the back of his mind, he still is not a believer in Brock Purdy. I know he's not, but the data and the evidence is there now. And you got to give Brock Purdy his props. A lot of it was on short passes, but this dude is efficient. He knows how to handle the blitz, get rid of the ball very quickly. On the other hand here, Jalen Hurts, not a bad game either, but not a great game from him. 26 of 45 for 298 yards, 1 touchdown. He did have 1 rushing touchdown. I think that's 12 rushing touchdowns already on the year for Jalen Hurts, who's definitely been a maniac when it comes to what he does on the ground. His running game, as far as his running backs, did not help him in this one. But I do want to talk about the other running back before I kick this one to you. Christian McCaffrey, okay? Some of these nuggets I'm about to wheel off here are absolutely ridiculous, okay? He finished the day with 93 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, and 40 yards receiving on just 3 receptions. CMC has 17 total touchdowns on the year. He's got more touchdowns than 5 teams in the NFL. The Giants being one of them. The Giants have 15 touchdowns on the year. CMC has 2 more touchdowns than my entire team.
Spike don't care.
That is absolutely ridiculous. The Panthers, the Jets, and the Patriots and the Steelers. The Jets only – this is wild, bro. CMC is about to double up the Jets. He's about to double them up. The Jets only have 10. They only got 10 touchdowns on the year. CMC is now one of only 3 players with 50 rushing touchdowns in his career and 25 receiving touchdowns. Only Lenny Moore and Marshall Faulk have more. CMC is a guy, this makes me think a lot about Saquon Barkley because you saw Christian McCaffrey was like, I'm not going to say struggling, but he was dealing with injury because of the overutilization that the Carolina Panthers were, giving him the ball. He was their entire offense during that time, I felt like. And now you see him move to San Francisco where he has other weapons like Brandon Ayuk, Debo Smith. Brandon Ayuk had a good day too, 5 receptions for 46 yards. 1 touchdown on the day. You got George Kittle, who had 4 receptions as well. I don't think he got in the end zone, but he had about 60 yards on the day as well. But when you see a running back can, be a part of a system rather than the system, which we all know Saquon Barkley is the identity of the New York Giants, you're starting to see a guy in CMC flourish and have more touchdowns than 5 ball clubs out there. So I do think that he was the big difference in this game because the Philadelphia Eagles struggled to run the ball and the 49ers did not. I also thought that the way that the 49ers defense attacked Jalen Hurts by just rushing 4 on the day was also a big factor in their victory here because they don't got to send guys out there to blitz. You can keep 7 back in coverage. And now you got Jalen Hurts in the pocket trying to figure out what to do, trying to wait for his wide receivers to get open. And I do think they did a pretty good job in this game, especially early and often. A.J. Brown, who I said, it's about damn time, okay? Last week I called for the game. He was going to be angry. He didn't have the game that we thought he was going to have, but in this one, 8 receptions, 114 yards on 13 targets. You had 24 targets between him and Devonta Smith. Devonta Smith had 9 receptions for 96 yards. That's 200 yards of offense from 2 players. But outside of that, they really did not have much going on. DeAndre Swift, 6 carries for 13 yards. What did you see in this matchup, man? I had to go back and watch this one a little bit, but this was an ugly, ugly game for the Philadelphia Eagles.
I mean, listen, the Philadelphia Eagles dropped the ball in the first half. First 2 possessions, 2 field goals. So in between those field goals, you had San Francisco punts. The big difference in the game is that because when Philadelphia, after that point, when Philadelphia punted 2 times, San Francisco answered both of those punts with 2 touchdowns. So, there was an obvious disconnect early in the game with the Philadelphia offense. I feel like they've gotten away a little too much from running the ball. And I know that's, a cliche thing to say, obviously, from coming from me, who's a run-first guy. But I feel like you have so much talent in DeAndre Swift. Like, if you're going to... you talked about A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and what their production was in this game. I feel like you need a third guy. Like when you talk about San Francisco, what do you talk about? You talk about McCaffrey, talk about Debo, talk about Ayuk, talk about Kittle. So like
Jawan Jennings in this game too.
You have a guy in DeAndre Swift that can be a big part of your offense. It doesn't necessarily just have to be running the ball, but you got to find a way.
You can't forget about the first play of the game.
Did get a little.
Ooh, that was a boy.
But I mean, you still got Kenneth Gainwell can
Yeah.
do some things too. He's obviously not DeAndre Swift, but Kenneth Gainwell can catch the ball out of the backfield as well.
And the way that they use Boston Scott, like
Yeah.
just so sparingly, like he's a decent running back. And I agree with you that they've gotten away from the read option this year. And I don't know if that's because they're trying to protect Jalen Hurts. I don't know if that's the case. He did have the shoulder injury last year, and you've seen a lot of teams are starting to do that. The Giants got away from it as well, and I think that they know that it's not a formula that is sustainable.
Exactly. And I think we also have to take a look, and I don't want this to come off as me making excuses for Philadelphia, because there's no excuses to be made. They got outplayed in every, facet of the game. But I'm starting to think about how much losing both coordinators is affecting Philadelphia. Yes, they're 10-2, right? But we all know that there hasn't been okay, that's a Super Bowl team win right there, right? We haven't really seen one of those games from Philadelphia yet. So I'm starting to think how much of that is gonna is taking an effect on this team, because defensively they have the talent. We've seen them play. They have a ton of talent on that side of the ball.
Yeah, and clearly not enough, right? Because they went out there and they signed Shaq Leonard.
And good, they needed to, because they got to figure a way out to fix things defensively, because it's just not working for them right now. You said the stat, the amount of yards that they gave up in this game, and that was definitely a critical thing. But even more so, it is a third down defense, and that's one of the things I talked about, because they were they were third worst going into this game in third down defense, and San Francisco is 8 for 11 on third down in this game. When you go 8 for 11 on third down, it's not easy, but it makes sense that you're scoring on 6 straight possessions. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like that, and then the red zone where Philadelphia generally thrives, they were 2 for 4. San Francisco 49ers 4 for 4 in the red zone. So like it's crazy to think that the game was as blown out as it was, but San Francisco took advantage of every single opportunity. Philadelphia failed to do that on multiple occasions. And then obviously, the big thing about Philadelphia and this defense, and I see everybody talking about it in the chat, is, San Francisco is a yak team. You talked about the yak. I mean, it's nothing against Brock Purdy. And yes, you are right. There is still a little devil hiding in the back of my brain telling me that Brock Purdy is, overrated. But I am not going to say it verbally. I'm going to, maybe visually show you that I'm not, completely sold on Brock Purdy. But it's interesting because I heard Jonathan Allen say this on the radio a couple days ago after the loss to Miami. They were talking about bad quarterbacks in the NFL, and Jonathan Allen said, I honestly don't believe that there are bad players in the NFL.
I understand what he's saying there.
Yeah, specifically the quarterback position. He was like, I think that most of these quarterbacks can flourish given the perfect storm, basically. The coaching, the scheme, those sort of situations, the cast around him.
That's the rare thing, though.
Yeah, it's
when
super
you think
rare.
about teams that just have the coaching part of it, that aspect of it locked down, maybe five to 10 teams, right?
If that,
you could be like, I'm completely confident that even the Dallas Cowboys people are still not 100% confident in the coaching staff. And I see Brother L, he says here, the film is saying otherwise about Brock Purdy. The streets are calling Brock Mr. Checkdown, which is true, right? We saw this with Patrick Mahomes last year. You remember that? All his touchdowns came from within 10 yards,
too high
right?
Safety on
people are playing
Kansas
them over
City.
the top, and they have the weapons that you have to respect over there. Now, I don't think Brock Purdy, he's in the MVP conversation right now. We were talking about it before the show, right? I don't think that Brock Purdy is necessarily the best quarterback in the NFL or even near
But he's damn good at what he does.
He's damn good at what he does. He takes care of the football. He knows what to do within that system, and I think he's an extension of Kyle Shanahan over there. The quarterback has to be a glorified coach that's on the field, and I think Brock Purdy's doing a good job of that. And he's still very young. We're talking about a quarterback that's just in his second season. Yeah. Teams got the tape on him from last year. They have not been able to correct it and been able to stop Brock Purdy for the most part. They did have that 3-game stretch there where they lost 3 straight and whatnot. The Browns figured out a way. A couple other teams did as well. But I think Brock Purdy is exactly what people were saying about Daniel Jones last year. He's doing exactly what he's asked to do out there within that system. I think Tua is another guy like that. And more importantly than having all those things, that you were talking about with Jonathan Allen, correct around you or perfect around you. The coach is probably the most important thing there. This is why I think it is so important. It's extremely important to have an offensive-minded guru behind your quarterback because he's going to be that extension of him. And you're seeing that with Kyle Shanahan. I'm so glad that you brought up the coordinators, right? Because not only do I think it's a thing with the coordinators, and I think that the offensive coordinator with the Philadelphia Eagles is probably the last one to blame. But with defense, it's definitely a thing. The Philadelphia Eagles, okay, they kind of flip-flop. Last year, their pass defense was one of the top pass defenses in the league. Their rush defense was a weakness. They flipped it this year. Their rush defense has been much better. Their pass defense has been an extreme liability throughout the whole entire season. And like you said, they got all the talent in the world over there to be a top 5, top 10 defense, but it's just not panning out. And the one thing I think that you didn't say that I got to piggyback on is Nick Sirianni. He's outcoached in this game completely. Yeah. You talked about the 2 field goals on the first 2 possessions for the Philadelphia Eagles, and then you allow them to go 6 straight possessions after the 2 punts, all touchdown drives. There's no way you're going to win a game after that. And I wanted to shout out Brother L because we were going back and forth today on Twitter a little bit, and I don't want to be too long-winded about this, but one of my homies, my homie Juice, said that Ether is like an average diss, and he said it wasn't even the best diss record within that battle. He said that Super Ugly was the best diss record from the Jay-Z and the Nas battle. So me and Brother L, we literally went back and forth all day today, literally all day, bar for bar, just like quoting bars. Because Brother L was
getting
like,
the notifications on my phone. I was like, oh, I'm reading your rap right now.
Pretty much. And I bet you there are a lot of people who aren't familiar with that, that battle between Nas and Jay-Z with the lyrics. They were probably looking at me like, why is Awthentik being so vulgar today on my timeline? Because, man, Nas's bars, bro, they are some vulgar bars. But I did think you made some great points on that. I think Brother L has a point there with Brock Purdy. He's definitely checking down. But I think that the way that Brock Purdy is anticipating pressure and getting rid of that ball so quickly, how many times was he sacked in this game? Was he not sacked?
No, he was definitely sacked. I remember a celebration, if I'm not mistaken. But I can get you that stat really fast. I usually do have that one on deck.
I'm curious about that because it seemed like from what I saw that he just wasn't under pressure much because he was getting rid of the ball so quickly. And y'all know me over here on this channel, man.
2 sacks.
2 sacks. I'm extremely high on these quarterbacks that can get rid of the ball fast, man. I think that's just a great characteristic for, especially if you're a young quarterback. If you show that right out the gate that you can do that's great for you as a quarterback moving forward. And if this isn't the best Brock Purdy, the best version we're seeing of him, I mean, good luck for these other teams out there stopping the 49ers, man. They got young weapons out there with Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, kind of getting a little up there in age, but he's going to be there for a while. And CMC now in his, I think CMC was drafted in 2018 as well, too. So, they like to say running backs fall off a cliff, but not the guy who's making the top dollar at that position.
Definitely not. Do want to give a big shout out to our guy, Tuto in the building with a $4.99 super chat. Says massive salute and respect to Awthentik and The Beard, #1, and all diehard Giants fans in America. And please slap all stinky Boyd's losers out of the door. Hard and fast. Fist pump, Italy.
My man, what's going on, Tudo? Hope all is well over there, brother, man. Appreciate you supporting the channel, man. That means a lot for us over here, dude. You know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for, because I know we're going to get to talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and I know you saw that throw from Geno in the back of the end zone, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I definitely you didn't. I saw it, but I didn't really see it until you dropped the QB school clip of it, and it's mind blowing, bro.
That is an incredible throw, man. Like I want to upload it because I remember I clipped it up, but I don't got it handy. But anything else you want to touch on this 49ers Eagles matchup? Oh, I actually got one more question for us before we round out this segment. Before we round this out, and for the family in the chat as well too. Because we talked about this pre-show. After destroying the Eagles, are the 49ers the best team in the NFL? I'm going to let you go first.
You always let me go first. You know that?
I'll go first. I got the answer in the bag ready to go.
I want to know what you think. Yeah, you go first.
All right, so I do think that they are one of the best teams in the NFL.
This is a Beard answer already.
Yeah, but I don't think they're the best team in the NFL right now. I do think there are a lot of teams out there that can beat them. I think that people are following the wave of the hype after them beating arguably the best team in the NFL and the Philadelphia Eagles. They had the best record, and you are what your record says you are. I'm really anxious to see another matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, don't
Remember
forget
that first game?
the 49ers still have to play the Commanders too, man.
Yeah, I mean that's another W in the win column. You know what I'm saying? But I do think that they're just the 49ers are they're I don't want to say they're peaking right now, but they're playing their best football right now. Their best version of themselves is what we saw this past weekend. I do think that there are a lot of teams that will give them fits, though. I think that the matchup was a good matchup for them against the Philadelphia Eagles. In hindsight, now seeing the game, especially, all they had to do was shut down that run. I think they were a little bit too physical for the Philadelphia Eagles. Going up against teams like, and I know this team is sitting there around 500, but I think the Buffalo Bills, they're another team that's very physical. I know they're dealing with a bunch of injuries on that defense, but they're a very physical team. Kansas City Chiefs defense has been one of the best defenses in the league, top 3 right now. I think they could give them some fits as well. And I want to see them go up against, teams like the Dolphins again and the Dallas Cowboys especially. I just think they saw the Dallas Cowboys when the Dallas Cowboys were more predicated on trying to feed Tony Pollard the rock and build and establish off the run. And then they came out of the bye, and the Dallas Cowboys have just been slinging the rock since. I cannot wait to see that matchup again. I've talked about it this year that I thought it would be in the best interest for the Dallas Cowboys to find a way to dodge the 49ers before they got to the championship. But I think that if the Dallas Cowboys got to see them in the first couple, I think it's going to be a great game. I don't think it'll be a blowout victory like it was that first time around when the 49ers took care of the Cowboys.
I think you're pretty much spot on. It's kind of the same way I feel. They're playing the best football right now. I don't think there's any question about that. I think Dallas is you could make an argument for 1A, 1B as far as playing the best football right now.
Yeah.
But I do think that there are some teams out there that would give them trouble. I really like Baltimore. I think Baltimore Ravens is a team
you mentioned them.
that I think that everybody kind of forgets about.
Especially they were on a bye this past week, right?
They were on a bye this past week. And, they've had a couple of questionable losses, I guess you could say. But, I mean, so if the 49ers lost a questionable game, let's be honest. They lost to the Cleveland Browns or the Jets. Who did they lose to?
They lost to the Browns for sure. I can't remember their 2 other losses, but I'll look them up right now.
But, yeah, I think that you can make an argument that they're the best team in the NFL. But I think that if there's one thing that's been proven this year, which I think is different than any year
Browns,
recently.
Bengals, Vikings.
Who was it?
Browns, Bengals, and the Vikings. Those were their 3 losses.
Yeah. So it's not like they lost to powerhouses. They lost to crafty fighting teams.
The Vikings is probably the most puzzling because they're not really that physical of a football team, but we know they can score a lot of points.
That was when they were like really beat. They lost all 3 of those games when they were really beat up, and they haven't lost since that 3 game.
Had some injuries. Yep, that's a good point.
So for me, I think that, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out for the rest of the year. I think that this year, though, what I was saying is that, what you haven't seen in the last couple of years is the cliche is more real and more truer this year than it has been in recent years. And that is the any given Sunday sort of situation. I think that there are few times. Most games are very close this year, and there's been a lot of teams that have lost these games. And we talked, those 3 losses they already had, the losses that the Ravens have had. The Commanders get mollywopped, but they play the Eagles like they're the 49ers.
Eagles lost to the Jets. Buffalo Bills lost to the Jets.
Yeah,
it's
a lot of
10 touchdowns on the year.
A lot of weird stuff. So for me, it's.
The Chiefs against the Packers this past week. I mean, that's another one. It's like, a good matchup, but you would have thought the Chiefs were going to handle business.
Yeah, you got to be on top of your game at all times. And I think that this might be a wake-up call for the Philadelphia Eagles because they have not played their best football yet all year long. And finally, it caught up to them. Yeah. You talked about the 4 straight games or whatever. Trailing at halftime.
Down at the half,
Yeah, exactly. So, you can't make it the whole year doing that. Eventually you will get caught. So I think that's the case.
And the one-score victories for the Eagles this year, too, are definitely higher than we've seen in the past.
Yeah, so it's interesting. It's going to be to see how this unfolds because I'm not exactly sure what the rest of San Francisco's schedule is outside of having to play the Commanders. But it'll be interesting to see how they continue to roll things out. And if you got to stay healthy. I think that's a key point. And everybody suffers injuries, but they got over their little injury, hump with that 3-game losing streak, and they haven't looked back since.
Yeah, and you just got to send a big shout out to Debo, because when you like put the spotlight on you like that, talking that much junk before a game, and then you go out there and you perform, that's high level stuff. That's greatness right there. That's not just being good. That's actually greatness right there. Let's move into this next matchup, man. I know you didn't want to talk about this one too much, but we got to talk about it. Let's talk about the Dolphins, who traveled to FedEx Field to take on the Beard's Washington Commanders. All right, man. This one was tough to watch, man. The Dolphins improved to 9-3. Commanders fall to 4-9. They lost to the Dolphins 45-15. This game got out of control so fast. The Dolphins were leading at the half 31-7. The Commanders have allowed 45 points in back-to-back weeks. That is not good. But
I want to say they've allowed 40 points like 4 times this year.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure y'all have. Let me see. So y'all,
Buffalo.
did the Broncos? Buffalo's put up 33 on y'all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was 33-3. Chicago, that's who it was, because y'all had 20. They beat y'all 40-20. So that is the third one right there. Outscored 90-25 in the last couple of weeks. And I mean, the week before that, y'all lost to my New York Giants. Very tough. Only 3 teams have a worse record than the Washington Commanders right now: the Panthers, the Patriots, and the Arizona Cardinals. Miami now has, man, and you know, I've just been digging into this touchdown stuff. Miami has 25 touchdown passes. Just touchdown passes. They have 22 rushing touchdowns in 12 games. Miami is the 3rd team ever with 25 passing touchdowns and 22 rushing touchdowns through 12 games. The only other 2 teams to do that are the 1998 Broncos and the 1975 Buffalo Bills. The Commanders outperformed in first downs, third down percentage, total plays, total yards, passing yards, penalties, time of possessions. Both teams were perfect in the red zone, but for Miami, that didn't matter too much. They were scoring from outside of the red zone as well.
Scoring from everywhere.
They were 3 for 3 in the red zone. Washington was 2 for 2 in the red zone. And before I kick this off to you, man, you know, I just wrote a little segment here. This is the Tyreek Hill segment right here. Tyreek Hill has been going absolutely crazy this year. He had 157 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. He had touchdowns of 78 and 60 yards. Hill has 16 career games with at least 150 receiving yards. That's tied with Jerry Rice for number 2. Only Lance Allworth has more 150-yard games at 17. So I'd imagine that Tyreek Hill is going to shatter those records. Hill is the 5th player in NFL history with 5 games of 150 or more receiving yards in a season. Only Tim Brown, Jerry Rice, Antonio Brown, and Roy Green from the St. Louis Cardinals have done it. Hill also has 11 career touchdowns of at least 75 yards, tied with Dante Hall for 4th most. He's got 21 career touchdowns of at least 60 yards, tied with Devin Hester for the 3rd most. Only Jerry Rice and Deshaun Jackson have more. I saw my homie Mr. Glass Half Full talking about what players could be considered to be as explosive or more explosive than Tyreek Hill, and he was like, I could only think about this guy, and he put Randy Moss. And I know Giants fans, we don't like to give Deshaun Jackson his props, but you got to put Deshaun Jackson in that category as well and in that conversation. Now, Washington's offense struggled on the day. And Sam Howell, it surprised me, only threw the ball 23 times in this game, but he only had 127 yards through the air, no touchdowns. He had the 1 interception, that turnover I always talk about every week. He did have 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. Howell rushed for his 5th touchdown of the season. He's the 5th quarterback in Washington franchise history to rush for multiple touchdowns in a single game, joining Robert Griffin III, Norm Snead, Mark Rippon, it surprised me, and Kirk Cousins had 2 in a game. And he didn't have much help either. Brian Robinson, 7 rushes for 53 yards, but 7.6 yards per carry. I think they should have gave him the ball a little bit more.
Hamstring.
I still think he did get hurt in that game. I still think he's y'all best player on the field. Terry McLaurin, and I'm going to kick this to you, man. Terry McLaurin, 0 receptions on the day, 3 targets. He was out there for 82% of the snaps. And in the press conference, he said, I got a lot of cardio out there. And he was actually looking at this in a positive manner. I think Terry McLaurin is probably one of the most classiest players in the entire NFL, because you never got to worry about him throwing his quarterback under the bus, and you never got to worry about him throwing his coaching staff under the bus. But just a pathetic performance offensively from the Washington Commanders. And this game was out of reach before you knew it. Y'all kind of, tried to claw back a little bit there in the second half. You put up the 2 touchdowns. Before we go over the
tried to kick
roadmap,
a
man,
field
what'd you think
goal.
about this one?
They tried to kick a field goal in the middle of that callback, which didn't
Yeah,
make
you
any
got to
sense.
take your points how you could get it, man.
Yeah, we didn't get those points either. Missed that field goal. Listen, it's sad. It's sad. It's unfortunate. We basically had 4 years of we're almost there to now realizing we're not even anywhere close. So I think this is probably, it's not like the loss is necessarily the rock bottom loss, because nobody thought we were going to win, right? And we all pretty much thought this was going to be close to the score. It was a little bit worse than.
Remember on the preview show, me and you both picked Washington to cover, and I kind of convinced you.
On the parlay, yeah, on the parlay.
Yeah.
But on the preview show, I had 34-17, so it wasn't too far away. As far as Terry McLaurin goes, there's been some conversations that he might not necessarily be 100% from that initial foot injury from the beginning of the year. Remember when we were at the game, the Ravens preseason game, and he hurt his foot and he missed the first week, I believe, of the regular season. And then there's some concern that there might be a lingering issue there, that he just never fully recovered from.
Some would call this an excuse.
Yeah, for sure. There's
he just owned it like, for sure. I'm making up excuses.
There's no excuses for anything that's going on right now. It's just not working. Coaching, the personnel decisions, the free agent signings, the draft picks, it's coming down and it's just crumbling. It's a disaster. There's just no other way around it. It's going to be a complete rebuild moving forward. You're looking at a complete wipeout.
Complete wipeout. You think so?
Complete wipeout. I was a firm believer that Eric Bieniemy was being groomed to be the next head coach, and I'm on record of saying that from the beginning of this, the preseason, right?
I think that seemed like the rational move because he's been in line for a head coaching position for so long. It actually was a surprise to people that he took an offensive coordinator job because they thought he was going to be a head coach. Yeah.
So I still think that's a possibility. There are some rumblings now that started coming out today where the Chicago Bears are apparently interested in Eric Bieniemy, which might be a good thing for us because I think we can get some draft picks out of that sort of situation. But you're looking at a completely new front office. More than likely a completely new coaching staff. Maybe Bieniemy stays. I'm not one of these people that's going to sit here and throw Eric Bieniemy under the bus. I'm just not. I've been critical of him at times this year, and there's been a lot of growing pains for him. But I still think that Eric Bieniemy has done with this offense what a lot of people probably couldn't. And I just think that this offensive line is so bad, and I've been going back and thinking about that question you asked me, right? About, what do we do with the pick, our first pick? Like, do you go quarterback? Do you go?
Right now y'all are holding on to the fourth pick.
Yeah, fourth or third pick, I think. And
fourth, because you got Cardinals still got one less win than y'all, but they're probably going to end up with more victories than y'all.
It's just it's so difficult because and shout out my guy Paulie because he's been talking about how many holes this roster's been on. And I've been naive, a homer, very over loyal, I think, to a lot of these guys. And, maybe you keep Terry McLaurin, I think, and
that's why when you said, clean it all out, that's the guy I was thinking about.
I still think.
And Brian Robinson too,
But I still think that there's going to be some guys that are probably going to be, if the opportunity presents itself and it's like a Montez Sweat sort of situation where it's like too good to pass up, I think, Terry McLaurin's on the board. Payne and Allen are both on the board. It's just, it's tough because you don't know what's going to happen. And we talked about this the other day. You just don't know because they're going to come in here with a completely new front office. It's going to be a completely new rebuild. The good thing is looking forward, we're not tied into any detrimental contracts. I mean, Allen and Payne both have pretty large contracts, but they're not detrimental contracts, So we're going to have $90 million in cap space. We're going to have a ton of draft picks. So there's a positive outlook, but it's sad because there's a lot of these guys like you kind of like you cling to Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne and Terry McLaurin. And I love Antonio Gibson. He's been a guy I've always liked, just the style of his play. I've defended him thick and thin. And I still think Sam Howell is a quarterback that you can win in the NFL with. I just truly believe that.
Yeah, totally.
And I think that there's people, I saw people, as soon as he threw that pick six, they're like, oh, he's throwing another pick six. And I'm like, listen, I will guarantee you 7 out of 10 quarterbacks in the National Football League make that same interception because it's a timing play. But the great quarterbacks probably pull it down and they see that defensive end is jumping it and biting.
We talked about that one a little bit, and when you run a screenplay like that, the whole idea is catch it and let it go.
Yeah.
So it's tough to even not take the throw. I've seen it with Justin Fields a lot, right? Because they run a ton of screens with the Chicago Bears. He'll just dart that ball right at the defender, hit him right in the face mask, right? And I just think the defender just made an excellent play. Not only did he just catch the ball, it caught it in stride and just right to the house. So it's like, that's not likely to happen every time you run a play like that. So I did think it was a bit of a freak type of interception for him, but he really had no other options. When I was at the Washington game between the Giants, Tommy DeVito had a play where Saquon Barkley, they set up a screen just like that. They motioned Saquon Barkley out to the left side. And he didn't throw it. And I was looking at him like, bro, what is you doing? It's a screenplay, man. Get the ball out as quick as you can. The blockers are out in front. If he does catch it, you're going to make some yards out of it. So I can't really, me, I've harped on Sam Howell's one turnover a game throughout this whole entire season. But with that one, it's like I kind of give him a pass on it too.
Yeah, and again, he made some great throws in this game. And the one thing about Sam Howell is you cannot question that kid's heart, his toughness. The dude is a battler, and Jonathan Allen. They asked him in this interview. So I listen to this Jonathan Allen interview every week, and one of the things they asked him, they're like, like some people say, like, how you play defense, like how can you? Because he's been a very big advocate for Sam Howell, and they asked him like, how can you, like tell people like this guy is a franchise type quarterback. And then so like they asked him that this week, they said, who does he remind you of the most? And the first name he said was Jalen Hurts. He said just the way that he carries himself and the way that his attitude and the way that like, he bad play, bad half, bad game, none of that stuff affects him. Like he just always comes back to work, always shows up to work. Like, like you get sacked that many times. Like it's tough to want to just get,
oh yeah.
And how many times have we seen quarterbacks, Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, that have had that effect where they gotten hit so many times and sacked so many times early in their career that it has affected them as a quarterback in the pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like we've seen it for him. It doesn't seem to affect him. And he ran the ball well, in this game. And I think the rushing touchdown was a nice one, but it's bad all the way around, and defensively, Ron Rivera came in and,
he's struggling.
Like, he's struggling. They were like, Tyreek Hill was like, I don't know what they were doing. They were playing me one-on-one. He was like, I guess they didn't respect me. It's just
it was ridiculous. They're sending all-out blitzes and like just hoping that somebody can hang with Tyreek Hill. And you got to credit Tua because he's making throws with people right in his face. And yeah, he's lollipopping it up, but that's what you ought to do. That reminds me of the game when we played y'all. You were at the game when Daniel Jones threw the pass to Darius Slayton. It was pretty much a game winner. It was the one where Dexter Lawrence jumped off sides at the end of the game, and everybody was like, yo, man, you got to catch that. You got to catch that. When your wide receiver's that open, there's no reason to put it on him hot. And I think Tua does a good job of that, whether it's on purpose or not. He does a good job of that. And shout out to Tua, man. He was playing the shit out of that guitar on Monday Night Football, bro. He was definitely playing that. But you cannot – Tyreek Hill is the most dangerous weapon in the entire NFL, and that was just completely silly. I think if anything, you probably wanted to bracket him the whole entire game. Allow somebody else to beat you outside of Tyreek Hill. I would have more relied on Jalen Waddle or one of these other guys. When you look at the offensive box score for the Dolphins, right, there was only one other wide receiver that caught a pass outside of Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, and it was River Cracraft. You know who that is?
I know who he is. Yes,
I don't know who that is. I'm gonna keep it funky with
He's
you.
a white.
I literally
He's a
wrote
white
the name
boy.
down. I was like, yeah, he's a white guy. There's not many of those wide receivers out there. You got Cooper Kupp, a few others. You know, my man Adam Thielen. Shout out my guy Adam Thielen one time. But I'm like, you literally got beat that bad by the running backs and Tyreek Hill. Jalen Waddle only 52 yards on 5 receptions. You should be able to tame them from scoring. The big plays, you talked about this, bro, on the preview show. You cannot allow these kind of big plays, and Washington has been doing that all year long. Ron Rivera's firing of Jack Del Rio, I think it's looking worse now. And like I told you last episode, it reminds me a lot of Joe Judge with Jason Garrett. Like, you did it too early. And now, if Ron Rivera, which I don't think he did, no, I think too early. I really do, because, you know, with Jack Del Rio, he's had success there. We talked about this already, so I don't got to go into length about it, right? He switched y'all to the 4-3. You saw success over there, but then you trade away the best assets that you have on the defense, right? I think if you allow Jack Del Rio to stay there, and this, I was going to say this, if Ron Rivera wants to see a future in coaching, which he might not, and that's probably why he's operating the way he is.
I think it is, and I said that from the beginning of the year. I think Washington has. And I feel bad for Ron Rivera. I truly do, because I don't think Ron Rivera is a bad coach. You know, he's an average coach. He's a good coach. He took a team to a Super Bowl. I mean, yeah, he did it with Cam Newton, but still, do you know how many coaches out there in the history of the NFL have never been to a Super Bowl? Hell of a lot more than have been to a Super Bowl.
Very true. But
so,
that Cam Newton, you know, at that point in time,
yeah,
man, he was
so
a different kind of monster.
But just everything that he has gone through on the field, off the field, and in his personal life over the course of his tenure here in Washington, it's just beating him down. He just looks like a defeated man right now, and it's unfortunate. You know, it's like looking at Obama when he went into office, and then looking at Obama when he came out of office.
Yeah, and
you know,
and you can see that Ron Rivera is aging. You know, at times I just question, like, man, you hear him in the press conference, just too transparent and almost like doesn't know what he's talking about at times, you know, and that's the part I think that's frightening. There are a couple statements in the chat that I definitely wanted to bring to your attention here. Shout out to Brad Brinkley in the building. I don't remember seeing Brad up in here too much.
This is Black Sheep Society.
That's what's up. Shout out to Brad one time in the building. He said, in all seriousness, Beard, I feel your pain. It's been a long, hard road out of hell. As a Dolphins fan, I think the future is going to change for the better there in Washington. I agree with him, and I think that's where a lot of your optimism came from this season, is because you're just hyped to get the whole Dan Snyder thing behind you and in the past. It's not going to happen overnight. I thought that this was a real great comment here. And then Kevin the PRF also said this: there's zero chance he stays. Can you see the next GM firing or hiring a defensive head coach? And he's talking about Eric Bieniemy staying.
I hope not. And I think this goes to what you're saying. It's like when we were talking about the quarterback being an extension of the head coach. I don't think that you can win right now in the NFL. Let me rephrase this, because I think that you can win. But I think that it's more important to have an offensive-minded head coach than it is a defensive-minded head coach right now. You have to have a really good defensive coordinator. And I think that there are some of those guys out there, obviously. And I think, you know, because I want to say the exception to the rule, because you look at a guy like DeMarco, not winning in New York. I still think he's a good head coach.
Considering what he's working with right now, though?
Exactly.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
You know what I'm saying? So, like,
right.
There is an exception to the rule. I just think that if you're going to be bringing in, even if you're not bringing in a new quarterback, let's say you're sticking with Sam Howell, right? He's still a young quarterback. I think it's important, because that's the most important position in the league, right? So you've got to bring in a head coach that can handle the quarterback the right way.
And I do think they botched it. I like Eric Bieniemy as a coordinator. I think that he can have success in the NFL, but I don't like the pairing of Eric Bieniemy with Sam Howell. When you look at what's happening with Brock Purdy, right? And I know you guys don't have all the assets that the San Francisco 49ers have, but you guys have Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. That's a decent foundation to be able to move the ball with a young quarterback and keep things like in front of him. Don't try to make him stretch the field so much and do things that are out of his capacity. So I just don't like the pairing. If you had a quarterback, you know, let's say you drafted Caleb Williams in the draft and then you bring in Eric Bieniemy, okay, from day one, I think it could have worked out. But Sam Howell to me is the kind of quarterback that needs grooming, and he needs a little bit of you know, I don't want to disrespect with the word, but like he just needs a little bit of, like, you know, just a little
Yeah.
If he's the Play-Doh, just kind of
Polished
pack it a certain way.
He's
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
not necessarily coddling the quarterback, but like, just take care of him and don't put him in a position to fail. Like Brian Dable would be perfect for a guy like Sam Howell.
So it's going to be interesting. We're going to wait and see on what happens moving forward. But the problem is we got a lot.
Son Zappa says
of
take a
holes.
quarterback in the draft. I wouldn't be opposed to it. I wouldn't be opposed to not taking a quarterback. But the fact that they blew up the defense, that does kind of bother me.
You go back and I that will be a stream for the ages because I lost it. I had my little rant because I understand what they were thinking, but it's like, damn, like if I'm the ownership, you have to step in and realize, like, outside of quarterback, what does every team want? An edge rusher.
Yeah, you want edge rushers.
You traded both of them away. And the two backups, which all these fans were clamoring for, just play Hill. He's got half as many sacks as Young does, and he only plays X amount of time. And I'm like,
there's always a portion of your own fan base that you have to completely ignore. And the people that were saying that about Washington remind me of the people that were saying Eric Gray could come in here and supplement what Saquon Barkley is doing.
Yeah,
sometimes you got to just ignore the BS.
And it's tough because like those two backups are both free agents after this. And the two guys behind them on the depth chart are 6th and 7th round draft picks.
Oh, y'all are going to address edge in the draft for sure, whether it be in the first or not. I don't think it'll be in the first round, but in the mid to late rounds, you're definitely going to have to address edge. And then I also thought Marquez Hardison said a really good one here too. He said, you have no choice but to keep Scary Terry. Nobody wants that fat contract because Terry McLaurin's making like about $23 million a year. And I think that is a good point. But a team who is desperate for a wide receiver one, like a la New York Giants, maybe
and listen,
possibly make a move on it, but you wouldn't see him be traded within the division.
Yeah, you talked about it too, though. Terry McLaurin taking on a contract like that is a lot easier to swallow when it's a guy like Terry McLaurin, a guy that's going to be beneficial to your locker room and can be let's be honest. Top 15 wide receiver in the NFL? Could be. He's falling off.
Last year, I would have been totally on board with that take, but I don't know about this year. And maybe you're right. Maybe he is dealing with an injury. Possibly, maybe Washington could take on some of the contract to help out. Yeah. But I mean, he's not in in the final year of the contract, so I don't know how plausible that is. But
before we wrap this up, and I think you have a question for me, I will just address the roadmap that is now been burned in the bottom of the barrel. We'll talk roadmap right now.
Yeah, you get on the freeway. What? No, turn right. Get out of the lane. No. Okay, get the position. Just get out the lane.
Sometimes I tell Authentic we don't even need to talk about the roadmap, right? But I
just wanted to give you a little intro. We don't need the music for this roadmap. This is gonna be bad.
No. I felt like this one should be talked about just because the first stop on the roadmap was holding Tyreek Hill to 70 yards or less. My guy went over 70 yards on his first catch of the game. 78-yard touchdown reception. So that was a big fat X. Hold Miami to 17. X or score 33. X. Force at least one turnover. X. Get at least 3 sacks. We got 0. Not even one.
That was y'all that got 0 sacks. I knew there was some team.
Then I talked about the third down conversion, holding them to 30%. They were 7 of 13, so about 55%, 60% there. Sam Howell, I thought this was going to be a gimme. Throw for 250 yards, 127 yards. And then RTDB, run for at least 100 yards. We did manage to do that. We ran for a collective 138 yards in this game. So that's the roadmap.
That's the roadmap. We need to.
Yeah.
Throw that one out. Okay, Kobe. Yeah, that was definitely a tough one for y'all. So to round this segment out here, man, and I think we kind of touched on this just a little bit, but I think this is a good question to pose to the chat and to you here. Commanders-wise, okay? Is it time to question the caliber of weapons on the Commanders' offense?
Yes. You know what's interesting is that I think, man, I tell you what, I think that the most underrated thing that is talked about this year in comparison to last year is, and you were one of the first people that brought this up, and then when you brought it up to me, I completely just ran with it because it made so much sense. That schedule that we played as a collective division last year was so damn.
It's terrible.
It was a mirage. It created a mirage of what fans thought their teams were, Yep. And I think it created a mirage for me. And I listen, this is why I think I had that, Dallas low and the Commanders high, because I was fooled by the mirage. And I didn't allow, it was like reverse mirage going on with Dallas. Like I looked at it as, okay, Dallas.
We're getting better.
Yeah, we're getting better. Dallas is getting worse.
Right.
It was naive. It was stupid of me. But I think one of the big things that I realized is Terry McLaurin. I don't want to say Terry McLaurin is overrated. I don't want to do that because I don't think he's overrated, because I never put him in a top 5 or anything like that. I had him in my top 10 at times, Yeah. But the thing is to be perfectly honest with you, you look at teams like Dallas, who I think CeeDee Lamb is a better wide receiver right now than Terry McLaurin is.
For sure.
You look at teams like, San Francisco and Philadelphia, Buffalo, Baltimore, and even Kansas City, because at the quarterback position. There is no blue chip superstar on this team. There's just not. You got some good guys, some average guys.
That's a fantastic point, man.
A lot of bad players, but zero blue chip superstars on this roster.
And if you had them, you traded them away just now to Chicago and San Francisco.
So there's just that's so I think that in general is an answer to the question. Like it's you question it because before you never really thought about it. You kind of were like, oh man, that defensive line, right?
Yep.
And then you're like, oh, Cam Curl, and then you're like Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Brian Robinson,
all B level players.
And then you kind of look at it and you sit back now and you're like, there is not one single blue chip super. Like Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen were both top 10 rated interior defensive linemen. They have dropped like 30 places in their ratings of interior defensive linemen this year. So I think that's the answer, is that there's not, they got that bag and they were like, I hate to say that about players. I just think that it's just been a tough situation moving forward for them. But no blue chip superstar players, not one. And you cannot be a Super Bowl, you cannot be a playoff contender in the National Football League if you don't have even one.
It's funny because that you say that, I've been thinking about it, right? I think about the Texans, but they have the quarterback. They have the real deal quarterback. We can't offensively, the Chiefs, they got Travis Kelce, so he has regressed this year, and I think that's the reason why
even Patrick Mahomes, he's a blue chip superstar.
100% got the quarterback, yeah. And I think if you're not going to have him out there on the outside or at running back or left tackle, you absolutely have to have one at quarterback. It's going to be tough for you to be able to thrive in this league without having a superstar.
Look at Pittsburgh. TJ Watt is a blue chip superstar.
For sure.
Cleveland Browns, Myles Garrett is a blue chip superstar.
They're not really a good team either. Yeah,
but they're in a playoff hunt, right?
Yeah, and the coach, man.
You gotta have a blue chip superstar, at least one, to kind of just put you in contention. Minnesota Vikings, they don't have it right now, but Justin Jefferson. You could go through every single team, but you look at the teams.
You could maybe call T.J. Hawkinson. You could maybe call him one.
He's up there.
I think he's right there.
Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. He is a bona fide blue chip superstar, in my opinion.
Yeah,
right?
He is.
Even Sam Laporta, you can make an argument for.
Not even make it. Sam Laporta is a damn dog. He's a guy.
And then you just go from team to team to team to team to
Sam
team.
Laporta a rookie? He a rookie, right?
He's a rookie.
Man.
It's just, it's so tough, man. But when you really look at these rosters and you're like, sometimes you get blinded by so much average, so much good,
So
not
much good.
great,
Yeah.
that you lose sight of. Damn, we don't have that guy.
Yeah,
Not
y'all
one.
don't even, because normally that's the player that gets marketed by the team too. It's a great point, man. It's a great point you made. And I agree with you on that. Like, yeah, we got to question the caliber of weapons now, Jahan Dotson. And I don't, the one thing that I would question about this question is if you had that guy at the quarterback, right? Because we know Sam Howell, like you said, he's a guy that can win games in this league for sure. But I'm not thinking about him knocking on the door of greatness just yet.
Yeah.
And I just think, like, what if you had that quarterback? Could he make these guys around him great? Because that is one thing that the New York Giants fan base has been talking about for 5 seasons now is our quarterback good enough to elevate the players around him? And I think Daniel Jones has done that in certain seasons, especially in 2022. But outside of that, he really has not elevated the guys around him. And I think Sam Howell he doesn't have the skill set just yet. I mean, it is first year starting to be able to really elevate Terry McLaurin to see the best version of him. If you were to get a quarterback out here who could really attack and really pose a threat to these DBs, which I think Sam Howell does it a little bit, maybe that makes Terry McLaurin a better player. But Terry McLaurin, throughout his year, he's been consistently the guy that we've seen, which is a guy who doesn't get in the end zone that much and is always knocking on the door of around 1,000 yards.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting offseason, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, it really is. I really, I can't wait until we get to about January because I just want to see where teams are picking in the draft. Because if y'all are sitting at 3 or 4, it's going to make that decision that much more pivotal for the move for your franchise here, especially if y'all come in with a new coaching staff who's probably going to want his own quarterback. And teams like the Giants and teams that are, the Bucks, these teams are still contending for a playoff spot, kind of still in the hunt, but also in the hunt for a top 6, 7 draft pick as well. So draft time is going to be really interesting.
This is going to be the first time, I think, during the 5 years where both of us might be picking in single digits.
Yeah, I think so. 2020, y'all won the division and made the playoffs, so that ruled y'all out. Y'all were picking after 18 that year. We were bad that year. 2020, we got 6 wins. 2019, we had like 4 or 5 wins. I think we had 5 wins in 2019. Y'all had Haskins in 2019.
Yeah, that was when we both drafted quarterbacks in the teens with Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins.
Well, we drafted Daniel Jones at number 6.
6, yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So, but what I'm trying to think about, though, is the following season, who did y'all draft that following year?
Chase Young at number 2.
So y'all picked Chase Young and we were both top 10 because we picked Andrew Thomas that year.
At what number was that?
Top 6, I think. I want to say Andrew Thomas was like pick 4. Somebody in the chat probably know off the top of the head. I want to say Andrew Thomas was definitely like top 4, top 5, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
So that's the first year. So we're gonna be looking at our second year, but yeah, it's tough, man. We're right back, bro. Like y'all were at 500 last year. We made it to the playoffs, got a playoff win. We thinking our franchises is on the up and up, and man, that was the biggest play action we have seen since we've been doing this show. It's tough. We're right back in the doghouse, right back in the kennel. Yeah, Thomas was pick number 4. Shout out to SHU Carter in the building, man. South Pacific. Hope all is well. All right, let's get to this last game, man. We're going to talk about the Seahawks, man, who traveled to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys. All right, man. This was a fantastic matchup between just 2 good teams. I think the Dallas Cowboys are knocking on the door of greatness right now. A very tough loss for the Seattle Seahawks, man. They end up losing this one 41-35. Seattle's got to play the 49ers next week, and then after that, they got the Philadelphia Eagles the following week. So, man, this is not looking good for them. They do have 3 winnable games after that, though. Looking like the Seahawks are probably going to win about 8 games this year and maybe be on the outside looking in. The Cowboys are 6-0 now at home this year and have won 14 in a row at AT&T Stadium. Seattle and Dallas combined for 76 points, 817 total yards, 58 first downs, just 1 turnover, and to me, this was the biggest stat of them all. 0 punts in the entire game.
Crazy. And
we're going to get to that a little bit later of why that happened. It's the 5th time in NFL history a game ended with 0 punts. Seattle did lead at the half, 21-20. My man Chaz French was texting me, diehard Dallas Cowboys fan. He's like, Awthentik, man, I'm extremely worried, bro. I was like, don't worry. It's a good test for Dak Prescott. I think he's going to come through in this one. The Cowboys trail by 1 at the end of the third after CeeDee Lamb dropped a 4th and 2 stick route that was wide open. And I know a lot of people are looking at Mike McCarthy like he's being a little bit too aggressive, but that was one that CeeDee Lamb definitely should have had. He patted himself on the chest and said that was his bad. It's the first time Dallas has beaten an opponent over 500 since week 2 when they had a victory over the New York Jets, but the Jets were just 1-0. So you can really look at this as their first victory over a team over 500. Cowboys have now won 4 straight games. Geno Smith drove the Seahawks down the field for a touchdown on one of the best throws I've seen all damn year. I wish I had the clip here to post for y'all. Maybe I'll post it later on so y'all can see that. If you want to check it out, go check out QB School. He broke it down. And, man, it's just a fantastic throw off his back foot. I believe it was DK Metcalf clearing on a route where he wasn't even open, and Geno just found a way to buy some time and threw it up and ended up in a touchdown for the Seattle Seahawks. With the Seahawks up by 8, a Cowboys field goal cut the lead to 5 with 9 minutes left. And at midfield, up by 5 points with 7 minutes left in the game, the Seahawks went for it on 4th and 1 and got stuffed on a running play. It was a 10-play, 29-yard drive. I don't know how the hell that happened. There had to be some penalties there because that don't make no damn sense. Dak then went 7 plays, 54 yards in 2 minutes, ended with a touchdown to Brandon Cooks to go up 38-35. The Seahawks failed on another 4th and short. Geno Smith had no time to throw the ball, had to throw it away with pressure in his face. I believe that was JSN on the left side of the field that didn't see it. It was a hot route kind of play there, and I guess they just had a miscommunication on that. And then there was a controversial call, at least in my eyes, from Mike McCarthy. And y'all know me, I've been giving Mike McCarthy his flowers all year. 3rd and 3 with a minute left. The Cowboys are in the red zone. They're up by 3. Clock is ticking down here now, and the Seahawks have no timeouts. And Mike McCarthy calls a fade route pass play to CeeDee Lamb. I know you're trying to be aggressive there. I thought maybe a screen play would have been the better call there because at least you know you could keep the clock running if you don't convert. You end up giving the ball back to the Seattle Seahawks after making the field goal. The Cowboys were up by 6, 41-35. And Geno and the Seahawks start driving. I started getting worried for Chaz, man. I told him they was going to win this game by 10 points. That's exactly what it looked like on that drive. Geno and the Seahawks end up going for it on another 4th and 2. And of all players that you don't block, they don't block Micah Parsons. He's got a free run to Geno Smith. Geno Smith has to scramble, try to get rid of the ball. Ends up in an incompletion there, almost a sack, and the game's over, 41-35 for the Dallas Cowboys. The last 3 possessions for the Seattle Seahawks end up in turnover on downs. That's why we didn't have a punt in this game. Yeah. I know it's getting late, but you could have maybe tried to at least punt one of these. The Cowboys outperformed the Seahawks in first downs, total plays. They had 1 less 3rd down conversion, total yards, rushing yards, and time of possession. The Cowboys in the red zone, I've been talking about this. If you're not going to be efficient, you better maximize your attempts. They had 8 red zone attempts in this game. They converted on 50% of them. The Seahawks were 4 for 5 in the red zone. And Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, I was about to say Dak Metcalf, and DK Metcalf, they were about as good as you could possibly be in this game. Geno Smith was 23 of 41, not the greatest completion percentage, but he had 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Deron Bland had that lone interception, and the Cowboys didn't capitalize.
That was a fantastic play by him.
Yeah, it was tight, too. I'd say it was a worse throw from Geno Smith because he kind of leaned it to the inside a little bit, gave Deron Bland a little bit of a shot on it. But nonetheless, a great play by Deron Bland. That's his 8th interception of the year. DK Metcalf, 6 receptions for 134 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had like 60 fantasy points in our league. He did another sign language touchdown where he said, "I stand on business." I saw the announcer trying to translate that. Like, I forget, they said something so goofy as what stand on business means. It was something entirely way too goofy. But DK Metcalf, nonetheless, had a great game. He logged the fastest speed of the year, too, hitting 22.6 miles per hour on the 73-yard touchdown. Charbonnet, in filling in for Kenneth Walker III, not the greatest day. They committed to the run, and I thought that's what kept them in the game because when Geno Smith has no running attack, he's really a different quarterback, a shell of himself. Charbonnet had 19 carries for 60 yards and 1 touchdown. In the end, Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb, they were just too much in this game. 29 for 41 for Dak Prescott for 299 yards. Just 1 yard away from his 5th game.
There was a lot of bettors out there that were not happy about that.
From the 300 yards and the 3 touchdowns, that would have been his 5th performance like that of the year. over the past 6 games, and this is why I think there's no doubt in my mind that Dak Prescott is the hottest quarterback in football right now. I know Brock Purdy doing his thing, 49ers doing their thing, but although the competition not as great as some of the other teams, Dak Prescott in his last 6 games, 20 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. We've been doing this show for 5 years. There's never been a run like that in the NFC East that I can remember. I remember Trevor Lawrence had a decent run for like 12-2 last season, but 20-2 is just ridiculous. And in those past 6 games, Dak Prescott has multiple passing touchdowns in every last one of those games. That is ridiculous. Okay.
It's in my opinion, it's the best football he's played in his career.
People are saying that this might be the best stretch of Dak Prescott's career. And I just want to know, like, nobody's talking about what the other stretch might be.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go when we get off. I'm going to go
maybe
get some dinner.
the beginning of the season that he had before the injury when they were like scoring like 40 points a game for like the first
but there's
4
no
games.
way he had 20 touchdowns and 2 interceptions.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no way.
I think that people are looking at, and I'm like this sometimes, but it's more so to play, devil's advocate. But I think some people are looking at the competition. But this is the thing. You throw 20 touchdowns against bad competition, but that 2 interceptions, bro. That 2 interceptions, like it's just, and it's the manner in which he's playing it too. And I think that we can look at the touchdowns and interceptions, but look at the completion percentage too. The running game hasn't necessarily been great. So for me, it's the best football he's played in his career.
Yeah, like I said, man, when we get off, I'm gonna check all the game logs. I like digging through that. That's how I found out that Daniel Jones stat of 39 straight games in the regular season without having back-to-back multiple passing touchdowns, and Dak doing it in 6. It's absolutely ridiculous. One other thing I'd add to this is that the penalties in this game were absurd. This was like the pass interference bowl. Every damn throw was a pass interference in this game. So a lot of yards were left out there on the field that, you got to turn into penalties. There was 257 yards of penalties in this game total, 10 by Dallas, 9 by the Seattle Seahawks. But nonetheless, man, Dak Prescott, to me, is not only in the MVP conversation, he's the front runner right now. I don't think any quarterback is playing anywhere near the kind of football that Dak Prescott has been playing in the last 6 weeks. And this started, 3 weeks ago where I was like, man, look, Dak Prescott is on a tear right now.
Yeah. Coming
out of that bye, Dak Prescott has been playing football like a possessed madman. And they made the switch from committing to the run and, Tony Pollard getting the workload, although he did have 20 carries
I was
in this
going to
game.
say, I think both of these teams, the point you brought up about, Charbonnet in Seattle with the dedication to the run, I thought both of these teams did a good job. You really don't see that a lot, like a game this high scoring with those sort of passing numbers, and then both running backs at 19 and 20 carries. So it's a really interesting, well-balanced
But then the
game.
completion percentage for both quarterbacks, not great. That's why that was like that. Both of them threw it over 40 times, I believe, but, 29 or 41 for Dak Prescott. He's usually better than that.
Yeah, but I will 1,000% agree with you. I said it off air before we went live. To me, Dak Prescott is the front runner right now for MVP. I don't think it's even a question, in my opinion.
Brother L got the Glock loaded.
If you take into account the Cowboys were supposed to be 8-9, Dak is playing some elite football, right, Beard? Absolutely. Listen, there's one thing that you will always know about the Beard is I will never try and cover up a bad take or backtrack. I might joke a little bit with you and throw some of that, but I'm pretty good at admitting when I'm wrong, and I was 1,000% wrong about the Dallas Cowboys. I will admit it, and they're playing some of the best football that they've played in a long time. I think that Dak Prescott is your MVP right now. And I think this week, Dallas, Philadelphia is going to be one for the ages.
Kai also chimed in about his best stretch. Weeks 1 through 7 of the 2021 season was the best stretch up until this year.
I think that was that the year he got hurt?
Could be. That might have been the year that Logan Ryan broke his leg on that hip drop tackle, which they talking about getting rid of the tush push. They need to address the hip drop tackles, I think, before they do that.
Yeah. So 29 to 41 is 71% completion percentage.
Is that in the stretch? Maybe I got a typo.
No, in this game,
I can
I
double
guess
check.
he's saying that's really good.
Let's see.
He said, "How dare you try to push a bearded take?"
Let me see. Oh man, my keyboard's doing something funky. But what'd you see in this game, man? I think I was pretty long-winded.
Listen, I think I saw, some of the things that Dallas, the things that will make them lose games happen. I don't think that a lot of these penalties, though, in this game were necessarily, I think that there was some bad officiating. I think both teams were, unfortunately, flagged in situations where they shouldn't have been flagged for sure. Dallas hadn't allowed a sack in, 3 straight games. They gave up 4 sacks in this game. That's one of those things that you kind of got to keep your eye out on. I thought McCarthy had some questionable. Obviously, the one on the 3rd down was insane, but I think that there's a couple of other questionable McCarthy decisions throughout this game. But I think that with Dak being on such a mission, it's like you can overcome some of those things against a team like the Seahawks. But we're going through this stretch now, right? This was like the excuse me, the warm-up test. Right? Like this is like the pre-SATs. Now you're going into the SATs. You got what? You got Philadelphia, Detroit. Who else do they have? They got Miami left still, right?
I can take a look at their schedule. And he was 70% in this game. It's 29 of 41 sounds worse than it really is. I'm just terrible at math.
But yeah, it's CeeDee Lamb is playing lights out football too. I mean, my God, he is.
Cowboys got the Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, and y'all at the end of the year.
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting moving forward to see what happens there. I thought, Micah Parsons once again. How they allow him to make that run at the quarterback at the end of the game is just mind-blowing. Like, that should be the one thing you're talking about before the play. Like, whatever you do, don't let him get to me. You know what I'm saying? But, like, this is, like, the 4th time this year where Micah Parsons has kind of had, like, a semi-quiet game. And when it matters most, it's just like he's just right there in the quarterback's face. So,
closing out games. And this is a great point right here by Jay Versick. The defense for the Dallas Cowboys was not good throughout this whole entire game, pretty much. When they needed that stop, though, to get Dak Prescott the ball back, to get that lead, they showed up. And you got to respect that.
Those three possessions to end the game. I mean, think about that. 3 downs.
Yeah.
Like, you're turning the ball over.
Downs is ridiculous.
Like, that's some.
And I want to say each time it's a 1-score game.
Yeah.
From 7 minutes on, each time it's a 1-score game. It's like, you can't be doing that.
And
Pete Carroll has been a little aggressive at times this year. I've noticed that before, where he let teams kind of linger around earlier this year.
The first one was the worst one because it's like at that point, Dallas's offense is playing lights out. It's just, in my opinion, you can't give the short field to Dak Prescott when you have the lead and there's 7 minutes left in the game. You got to at least make them work for it. I know they've been scoring no matter what, but I think that one probably rubbed me the wrong way the most out of all of them.
Yeah, I see Steven Arson in the chat. He says, what can go wrong will go wrong. We them boys wild card exit. And this is kind of a bad narrative that's going around. I'm telling you, people forgot about the Bucs win in the wild card last year for the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of people think they were just ousted by the 49ers. But listen, man, I'm going to let the cat out the bag now because we're getting down to that time, right? At the beginning of the year, I wrote down 2 teams for the Super Bowl. It was the Baltimore Ravens and the Dallas Cowboys. I thought with the addition of Stephon Gilmore and Brandon Cooks, who is not really showing up quite how I thought he
has been lately, though.
But for me, it's the targets, man. And like, he's just not involved in this offense as much as I thought he would be. But I think where he's not shining, CeeDee Lamb is making up for it. These games, CeeDee Lamb, 12 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. This is becoming a regular thing.
It's his best year of his career too.
1,000%. And I tweeted this out 100 times on a Thursday night. Nobody run that slant route like CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott. And not only did I say that, I said this is actually a perfect setup for them to run a Z out or a whip route right now. And then they started eating on the whip route. I'm like, that's how you set them up. You get teams overplaying that slant route. And then you can run stuff off of that. And CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, man, I think A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts run it really well too. I like the way Cooper Kupp runs it as well with the Rams and whatnot. But, like, nobody runs it like the Dallas Cowboys. it's not quite Odell Beckham and Eli Manning because he's not breaking them for touchdowns. But whenever they need a first down, they can run that slant to CeeDee Lamb, no problem. And he just uses his physicality to, muscle his way into a reception. DK Metcalf's pretty good at it as well.
Yeah. It's definitely some teams in there, but I had Ravens. Ravens was one of my, I thought that this was going to be finally the year for the Ravens because I thought was the best assortment of weapons that Lamar has had in his career.
Oh, I mean, yeah, without a doubt. Like
Yeah, so
he's never had that many weapons.
But I think that their defense is
injury's
played a
gonna
lot
hurt
better.
the defense is great. That's the coordinators, I believe, is Mike McDonald. He's really got them playing great football, man. And the way that he disguises the blitz is so different. I did a little bit of studying on their defense. He's disguising that blitz so differently than Wink Martindale does. Like, Wink Martindale's like, oh, we're going to blitz. We're going to send the house at you, and you're not going to know where it's coming from. Mike McDonald is sending 4 and 5 rushers at a time, but just disguising it so great that these quarterbacks aren't even being able to see it. I started to notice it in the game against the Detroit Lions against Jared Goff, where Jared Goff, a savvy veteran quarterback, literally getting hit blindside without even knowing where, the rush is coming from and not adjusting his protection. So, Kyle Hamilton that's a first-round pick that, at the time I looked at it like, man, I don't know. Y'all might be reaching a little bit, and that's really panning out.
You know that, and obviously I'm a little biased because, he's Notre Dame, but I wanted him for Washington. I thought he was one of the best all-around players, like offensively, defensively. And like, it's easy for me to say that because Notre Dame, but just I watched him play a lot of football, and that dude is so good.
The knock on him was his coverage. He was more of a tackling type of safety. His build and the way he played the game reminds me of Isaiah Simmons a little bit, but he's just a bigger hitter, And I think it's a schematic thing with him though. Like Mike McDonald just putting him in position, moving him around, not just keeping him. It's like when I looked at Isaiah Simmons with the Cardinals, the knock on him was that he was too versatile and they didn't know what to do with him. And it's completely the opposite with Kyle Hamilton with the Baltimore Ravens. But I do think that the injury to Mark Andrews is going to hurt them. I do think that. And I know Zach Ertz was out there. Where did Zach Ertz end up?
I don't know if he's signed anywhere yet.
It might be a guy. I know they got Isaiah Likely over there, but that might be a guy they might want to bring in. I think he has a similar skill set to Mark Andrews. Obviously not the same player, though.
Yeah. Got a question for me?
Of course. Yeah, definitely. Of course, man. And
I know there's a Dallas question lined up for the beard.
Yeah, on these recaps, I try to give you at least a good question per game here. What you think about this one? Is Dak unfairly held to a higher standard than every other quarterback in the league?
1,000%.
Look at the beard. Look at the beard.
1,000%.
I want y'all to look at the beard.
Hey guys.
It's you.
No,
You
it's true.
You ran
man.
out of gas. You ran out of gas, and now when you get desperate, things change.
It's true though. It's weird. Why? Listen, you want me to be perfectly honest with you?
Marquez said he didn't stutter.
Listen, I will tell you this too, and I think Dak falls into this. I don't think this is 100% why he's held to a higher standard. I think he's held to a higher standard because he plays for the Cowboys. I think you could say that there's a lot of that goes around in if you play for the Yankees or if you play for the Lakers, those sort of situations. I think black quarterbacks are held to a higher standard than every other quarterback in the league.
I'm glad you said that. They gonna tap me if I say that. Why are you making this about race, Authentic? What do they say on Twitter? Race baiting. You're race baiting. Then they tell me how how racist I am. I'm like, bro, you can't. How can I be racist talking about a black guy?
Yeah, it's true. I don't care what anybody says. I think black quarterbacks are held to a higher standard than every other quarterback in this league. So you pair that with playing for America's team and the Dallas Cowboys.
Y'all see the beard cooking? Do y'all see the beard cooking right now?
It's like his back is against the wall, man. It's true. I just it's unfortunate. And listen, I think it's a lot of stereotypes that go into the Dallas Cowboys as a whole, man.
The chat is wild. Look, first Marquez said, but Dak is biracial. Listen, once that melanin enters, you black right after that. Brother L said, "Oh, I knew where Beard was going. I saw that look in his eye."
So yeah, it's just it's unfortunate, but I think And I think that that's probably a lot of what goes on too in the playoffs. Is some people will say, "Oh, well, Dak can't handle the pressure," right? I think this year he's handling, because if you think about it, his contract and coming off the back-to-back 12 wins, this has probably been the most pressure he's been under in a regular season since he's been, the quarterback in Dallas out of all the other years. Because you got to remember too, like, he came out the gate, not a first-round draft pick, came in and, took them to the playoffs. So I think that, there's a lot against Dak, and I think he's handling it the best he's handled it all year. It's just now it's going to get real, though, because now everybody's talking about Dak. Now he's got that murder row of a schedule and then the playoffs. So, listen, I'd never want to openly root for the Dallas Cowboys. That's a known fact, obviously. But I kind of root for Dak. Dak's never been a douchebag quarterback.
You're going to have to root for the Dallas Cowboys if you're going to be rooting for Dak.
Yeah.
I saw Dan Patrick talking about it today, though. He said if Dak can go 3-1 in this next stretch, the pressure will, it'll relinquish a little bit. Stephen R. says part is because he's surrounded by talent at every position on offense, but somehow always comes up short when it comes to the playoffs. Now, I think that last year, their weapons were extremely overblown. They had Noah Brown. They had CeeDee Lamb, who was coming into his own. I think that was CeeDee Lamb's second year, in the league. Second, maybe third. I think it was his second year. And you had Zeke Elliott and Tony Pollard, right, which was great in the backfield. But this year, when you remove Zeke Elliott, he proved last year that he was starting to lose a little bit of steam, obviously. He wasn't the same running back he once was. Tony Pollard, now as the bell cow running back, Tony Pollard's maybe the 15th best running back in the league, maybe?
Yeah, he's not performing at the level that I know I did. I can only speak for both of us, but I think I went into this year thinking that, I've been begging for more Tony Pollards for a while now.
You had all last year you were talking about give him more carries than Zeke Elliott. I remember that.
And I think that it's just, I don't know, it's maybe he would be better with being a lead back, but having
most definitely.
Yeah.
Listen, man, and I will continue to say this until the horse is completely dead and buried. If you are a hybrid running back and you aren't CMC, and they still try to bring in running backs with CMC, they had to get rid of running backs because CMC get one over there. They're like, oh, we got to ship some of you guys off. Every hybrid running back needs another running back that's a physical runner. They benefit from that because they don't got to take the big hits. When you get these hybrid running backs and they're going between the tackles every play, it takes away from the dynamic and the explosive plays that they can then make in return. Tony Pollard was a walking highlight last year because he had Zeke Elliott over there, and people looked at it like, oh, well, Zeke's not getting the yards. We should be giving those carries to Tony Pollard, and I don't fault them for doing that. But at the end of the day, when you have the Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara type of situation, it's always better for the hybrid running back. And I think that this is part of the, holding Dak to a higher standard. We overinflate what he has over there. Like, he has a good team around him. But Dak Prescott's not like a Brock Purdy type of situation.
No, I feel like we've talked about this so many damn times.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, so you remember how we were talking about with Washington, right? Like, about their weapons, right? I feel like it's like this with Dallas all the time. Like, everybody just thinks that he has this, world-class offensive line. Jalen Hurts deals with it too. Just so happens to be that they're both non-white quarterbacks, but Jalen Hurts has the best offensive line.
The Beard is on a mission, but you are dropping facts right now. Like, these guys are all held to higher standards, and then Dak Prescott, being that he plays for the Dallas Cowboys, it makes it even worse. Stephen R. said Cedric Wilson, wasn't he a Cowboy? Yeah, he was. Cedric Wilson, Kevontae Turpin is a better version of Cedric Wilson this year. Kevontae Turpin out here in special teams making plays, but it's a fact, man. Like, these guys are held to way higher standards, and then people are just waiting for them to fall off. They're always called either, a guy who falls short in the bright lights, or in the running quarterback's cases, they're a running back. Yeah, man. It's like, it frustrates me, man, because me, I've tweeted this out 100 times. I unapologetically root for all black quarterbacks because I'm old enough to remember coming through the 80s, coming through the 90s, where like these guys were talented and they were not getting opportunities, not one bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like with Doug Williams, like that was a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal.
And Doug Williams ended up playing because of the lockout year. That was the only reason why he started.
He was the first first black quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. And he had to do it in a year where the other quarterbacks were holding out because of contract disputes.
And then you got we had Randall Cunningham, Warren Moon. Like some of these guys, Warren Moon had to play in a damn CFL for 10 years before he finally.
He was an OG before
you know what
he
I'm
got
saying?
to the NFL.
So it's just like it's interesting to see the evolution of that. But I think that because of the running aspect of some of these quarterbacks, that they're not looked at as quarterbacks that can do it the traditional way. And I feel like Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott are both very quiet about the way they handle their business. And I think that's it sucks that even Lamar Jackson, like he may not be as quiet, right? But it's just like people want to talk about Lamar Jackson and all these stats and everything like that, right? And then they're like, oh, well Jalen Hurts, it's like, oh, but most of his touchdowns are rushing touchdowns. But then, like, when we're talking about Daniel Jones, it's like, but what about his rushing touchdowns? And it's just like,
it doesn't make any sense, bro. It don't make no sense.
So
you can look at Cam Newton when he was with the New England Patriots too, right? First year in the system, they gave him no time over there. And I'm not saying Cam Newton was in that class of Jalen Hurts right now, or even how Dak Prescott is playing at this moment in time. But how short that leash was before they went to Mac Jones with the Patriots. And Cam Newton had like 8 rushing touchdowns or something like that. And he didn't play every game. And they're looking at him like, oh, he's washed. I think, and it goes beyond race, I think, as well. Obviously, for some of these fans, you see it on Twitter. People, they just they're throwing the racist stuff out there on purpose, right? But I also think that you've seen the position played a certain way for so long that when you see it start to shift, right? It's like the Steph Curry effect. I remember when he came in the league, the way he played ball, people was like, Allen Iverson, same
that's
thing.
Exactly where I was.
They're looking at him like this dude's kind of carrying the ball, crossing people over, bringing a whole new thing to the game. And people, the traditionalists, they don't like it. So I understand it, right? But now that we're now 2 decades plus removed from Willie Beeman's debut for the Sharks, okay? Like that was in 1999 that movie came out, when they were talking about black quarterbacks having troubles getting starting jobs in the NFL and, the man going up against them pretty much, right? We're that far removed, and there are still people that don't want to see quarterbacks play the position a little bit differently, like guys like Jalen Hurts. I mean, dude, I had this dude, the Mage, trying to pretty much convince me throughout the whole offseason that Daniel Jones was a better quarterback than Lamar Jackson. That's how much the people want to see the position played the traditional way. And I get it, man. And we know in the 70s and in the 80s, I forget the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was one of the first black quarterbacks around the time of Terry Bradshaw. He played a couple games when Terry Bradshaw was hurt or something like that, and he balled out. He was one of the first dudes scoring rushing touchdowns and whatnot. The Denver Broncos had another black quarterback. I think they were the first ones to start a black quarterback. But quickly, you saw that shift because a lot of these GMs, a lot of these people in the upper offices were like, look, these guys aren't smart enough to play the position. And that was the whole knock throughout the 70s going into the 80s when that shit was still okay. But then the late 80s and in the 90s, you just did not get a lot of black quarterbacks. And unfortunately, a lot of the guys that did see the day of light to get some playing time, they weren't that great. We can't forget about Rodney Peete from the Detroit Lions, too, because he got some PT as well as a black quarterback, and he played pretty well.
Did you watch Barry Sanders' movie yet?
I still haven't. You know me, it's like an album, right? Like, and I might be saying this till next year because I still haven't listened to the Kendrick Lamar album, the last one, and he getting ready to drop a new album. I'm like, I got to get to it. I like to sit down and really absorb those documentaries. So maybe tonight.
The reason why I bring that up is because Rodney Pete's good in that, too.
Oh, I definitely want to check that out. But yeah, man, you definitely dropping some gems here, man, and I think that's a great point there. And I do think Dak is held to an unfair. I put unfairly in the question on purpose because it's completely unfair. And I think that if he had the Super Bowls, though, they wouldn't hold him to that standard because you talked about it. Dallas obviously inflates the whole situation, but Patrick Mahomes, a guy who's struggling this year, that people kind of giving him a pass this year.
Yeah, listen, he's always gonna until he wins. What do you think? I think if he can get to a championship game and play well and they lose, they won't blame him.
It'll help his case for sure. But a Super Bowl would really solidify that because he's put up the numbers damn near every year.
Yeah, and MVP.
And he's the longest tenured quarterback with his own team in the league right now. There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
All these other dudes moving around, right?
You get 2 years.
Yeah, Dak Prescott been there. And he was not a guy drafted high. The only reason why he got on the field was because Tony Romo got hurt.
Yeah. Crazy.
That's why. Look, That's why I fuck with Jerry Jones, bro. That's why I get down with Jerry Jones, because it's stuff like that, man. Like, he don't care. He does not care about the perception. And that's why I think Mike McCarthy is safe. Now, I think he's safe.
Man, if Dak wins MVP and they lose in the first round, Mike McCarthy's going to be the scapegoat.
First round loss is not going to be a good look. It's not going to be a good look.
Yeah.
You can't. That team is playing too well to be exited in the first round. But as long as they, you want to hope that the 49ers just ain't, you don't got to play them in the first round.
Yeah.
But with them as a wild card, it might happen.
Exactly. But, they're going to have. That's going to be interesting because it's going to come down to like how I think it's going to come down like how it was last year, man. That last week of the season is going to determine a number 1 seed between Philly, San Fran, Dallas, maybe even Detroit. Detroit, I think, has the easiest schedule of all of them.
And Detroit is at 8 wins now, I think.
Yeah, they had a bye week, right? Yeah, they had a bye week. They're 8-3.
They were 8-3.
Yeah.
Are they 8-3 with a bye? I feel like
9
they should have one more.
9-3.
Maybe they're 9-3 now.
Or are they 8-4?
Let me look that up before we go. I think that's important.
It is. But I thought that they were right there. I know Jacksonville, if they would have won last night, they'd have been the number 1 seed. They're 9-3?
They're 9-3 now.
Yeah,
yep.
so 9-3.
They got a shot at it. Just a game back. Cowboys and the Lions, game back.
9-3.
And the 49ers.
And the 49ers are 9-3, and Philly's 10-2. Ooh, it's going to be a fun one down there.
Falcons are 6-6 at the top of the NFC North or South.
that Dallas-Detroit game is going to have a lot riding on it.
Yeah, it's a huge game. Huge game. And Philly down the stretch, you're right. It's probably going to come down to how it was last year. Last week, trying to see who gets that number 1 seed. I think that's going to be important. So no resting your starters for the Philadelphia Eagles going up against my Giants.
Yeah, and you want to know what happened this year too? That left hand up.
That is gone.
Gone. Because I just started thinking about last game of the season, right? Are we gonna ruin Dallas's, chances again at a number 1 seed? And for some reason I was like gonna be like the Commanders. And then I was like in my head, I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot. Man, that left hand is down.
I don't even know why that caught steam. You got all these great go-go bands. You got Backyard. You could have did something real dope with that. I ain't hating on them dudes, right? But like that joint had like a half fake go-go vibe to it. That joint was bad.
Let's just be honest.
Yo, shout out to my brother Nucci, man. He had Benny the Butcher on his porch freestyles.
Oh,
that they
for
do.
real?
That they do here with shout out to Booby, man, who's a awesome rapper from this area, OG, and his son Nucci had just had Benny the Butcher on the porch freestyles, man. I looked on my Instagram and saw that today, man. I was so proud of that dude, man. So big shout out to him, man. He's been doing some dope stuff. He was signed to Atlantic Records for a little while, and now he's independent doing his thing, man. Just wanted to send him a big shout out.
He was in town for his birthday. I wonder if they shot that then.
They did, yep. And he man, more shout outs. My homie Kingpin Slim, who's on the last album I did, The Color of Us, he also got a feature with Benny the Butcher and a video with him. Benny was making his rounds, man. I think that's dope, man. When you get in a position like that, all the stuff that he's done with Griselda, and then you share the spotlight with people that's not even from your region for real. Because I think they all from Buffalo and whatnot.
Buffalo, yeah.
So I think that's awesome, man. So big shout out to Benny the Butcher, man. That was fire. And they did a go-go version of the record with J. Cole, the Johnny P. Caddy joint.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded so vicious, man. I know Benny thinking like, man, I might need to bring a go-go band with me on the road. They was sounding fire, bro. It was so dope, man. So big shout out to them, man. Those my guys, man. Came up in the music scene with all them.
Yeah, that was a good little run there today, guys.
Yeah, that's a good one, man. The chat been booming, and I know the Cowboys fans, they're happy with your assessment of everything today. No stuttering, no hesitations, bro. You just right to it. He said 1,000%. And you know what else I'm gonna add? Black quarterbacks are judged unfairly in the league. Yo, I think it was either L or Marquez. I think it might have been L that said the melanin beard. Shout out to the gang one time, yo. Yeah, man, that's major, man. But any last words, bro, before we get the fam up out of here, man? That was definitely a whole entire vibe, man. I definitely dug the vibes of this show, especially with my team on the bye one time.
Yeah, listen, big shout out to everybody in the chat, man. Listen, football is a great thing. I love football, and I will never be one of these people like, as bad as my team is, right? I'm not going to take that away of my joy for the sport as a whole. I think that's something that's super important. Like, no matter how bad your team is, no matter how bad the week was, the game was, yeah, you can, give your time to let all that off your chest and complain, but don't take for granted how beautiful and awesome this sport is, and why I do this with Awthentik. Outside of us being brothers, like, you have to truly love something to sit up here and do this, as much as we do.
4 days a week, bro.
Yeah, when our teams
and some more.
are as bad as we are, it's important to me to make sure that you guys know that, I do this because I love football. I love football, and I do this because you guys are here, no matter what. Commanders fans, Giants fans, Cowboys fans, Eagles fans, we all, love to sit down and talk about football. So big shout out to everybody in the chat, all the platforms, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, right here on YouTube, man. Much love to you guys. We wouldn't be able to do this without y'all.
That's a big fact, man. And I told the Beard before we went live today, man, I was like, let's try to keep this show short and sweet, nice and tight, very concise. But I said, hey, look, if it start rolling, let's just start doing what we do, man. And that's exactly what happened, man. So big shout out to all y'all that were here, to rock out with us today, man. Big shout out to the fam in the chat. Y'all know what it is. We'll be back on Thursday for the preview show. No Bleacher Report streams this week with the Giants on the bye last week. I'll be back at it after the game this week. So keep your eyes for that. Keep your eyes peeled for that one and whatnot, man. But yeah, man, y'all know how we end every show over here, man. Keep raising that bar, y'all. Keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. Brother L, that was a great hip-hop conversation we had earlier today on Twitter. We going to continue it. Back and forth on the bars. I think we like 15 lines in. We're going to continue that, man. And if y'all want to continue the discussion about the NFC East, man, y'all can check us out on Twitter at Awthentik, at Tim Walk on Water, man. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night. I know I'm going to do the same, man. Y'all be good. Peace.
Spike don't care.